Perennial Shade Garden is really looking good this spring. We've had really nice cool weather lately. We've had enough moisture, and we've got so many different things coming up in the Perennial Shade Garden that we want to talk a little bit about this morning. I've asked Steve to join us and talk about the shade garden, maybe some of the plants we've got in there and how we put it together. And Steve, it really looks nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, lots of things are starting to get going this time of the year. We got some color showing up on some of these perennials.
We're going to talk about them, and the reason I like this, and the reason I really like a perennial garden of this type is that you really have a variety of plants in there, but you have some subsequent blooming and different kinds of foliage and colors and textures, and it's just a good blend of things.
Yeah, in the deciduous, underneath the deciduous trees, we get a lot of things that want to bloom and kind of grow a little bit before the leaves come on. Mm-hmm. So we get some of these early blooming things now, and we'll have other things blooming as the season continues.
Yeah, and Steve, we were talking a little bit earlier about our garden and how this could be an alternative that someone wants to consider underneath a shade tree such as this. I mean, oftentimes we want to plant fescue or some other cool season grass, or perhaps just put ground cover, and those have their problems too, but this could be a good alternative to something like that under a shade tree.
Absolutely. The turf grass are going to take a lot of moisture out of the soil, whereas just a planting of perennials isn't going to compete with the roots of the trees as much.
Right, and the tree roots are not going to compete quite as much in the summertime, perhaps, as some of these begin to go dormant and some more come on, as it will with the grass as well.
Exactly.
So well, what have we got here? What are some of the plants that we may want to look at?
Well, you can see we've got a lot of the Italian arum. It's kind of reseeding itself in here, and we'll come in and kind of thin out the ones we don't want, and kind of strategically leave the ones that are in the positions we want to leave them.
That looks sort of reminiscent right now of some of the early hostas coming up, but it's a little bit earlier than our hostas, and so you have that early foliage color there.
Right, these actually stay green throughout the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice cool season plant. They'll bloom and they'll have some little orange fruit, and they actually go dormant when it gets hot, so they get out of here before the hot weather sets in.
Here's another little plant coming up. Tell us about this one.
Well, that looks like a columbine at first, but it's actually a meadow rue or thalictrum, and they get a little bit taller than the columbines and have kind of an airy panicle flowers.
Different colors?
Yeah, there's some yellows, pinks, and some whites. We have a larger one right over here, and it has a yellow panicle flower later in the year.
I see we have some bulbs that are really bright and blue right now, and the little cluster like this really adds a splash of color among some of these foliage plants this early that aren't flowering yet.
Yeah, these are the little Glory of the Snow bulbs, the genus Kyandoxa, and they're a little bulb from Turkey and Greece, around that area, and again, very early flowering plant. Really lights up the shade this time of the year.
It really is bright, and I like this. I like the way this has been put in here. It's I think when this was established, actually several years ago, the plants were just placed in the soil with no or very, very minimal preparation. And then over the years, it's been mulched well with wood chips, a fairly inexpensive mulch, and available to most people that live in a municipality if they can get them, and pine needles and some leaves. And so over the years, that's really composted, and it's made a good protection from weeds, and also holds moisture in, and really looks like it's a self-feeder to the plants almost.
Yeah, very little input from this. This was actually done before I was here, and there was no organic matter brought in. The plants were just planted, and every year we put a new layer of these wood chips down, and yeah, it's developed into a really nice soil.
And oftentimes with wood chips, we think that we may have added fertilizer to help, or added nitrogen to help feed the plants, or those decompose, but actually on this we haven't had to do that.
No, we haven't. They've decomposed it on their own.
These are my two favorites, my absolute two favorite plants in this whole perennial garden.
Well, this is the celandine poppy, and this is one of our native wildflowers. Not actually native to Oklahoma, but native to the southeastern part of the United States. And they make it all the way up to Arkansas. It's actually native to some of the forests in Arkansas, but does well under the shade of deciduous trees here in Oklahoma. And right beside it here, you might think this looks like a little peony, but this is actually a Hellebore. And this group of plants has really gotten a lot of attention lately. Over the last 3 or 4 years, you see them on the cover of a lot of magazines, a lot of garden catalogs. Well, we decided we needed to plant some here at our studio gardens. And last spring we planted these here. These were our very first Hellebores. And this is the first time they've bloomed, and they're doing quite well.
Yeah, they look
we're
like
excited about them.
look like they're real happy here.
Yeah.
I think. And you know, I may have stretched a little bit because this little plant over here that's just coming up, I really like it too, the little wild orchid.
Yes, the
I love this.
hardy Chinese orchid. You can see the buds starting to come out of the ground here, and you can see the stems from last year.
I think we have a little larger one over there.
Yeah, exactly. We have 2 colors. We have a white and kind of a lavender purple color, and these will be blooming a little bit later this spring.
I think another added feature back here too are some of the garden features, the little rock outcropping, the little toad-abodes. I think those are really neat. The kids that come out here always like the toad-abodes, and then the hardy ferns. So kind of tell us about this little area here.
We just wanted to have a little bit of extra, different kind of texture in the garden, so we put these rocks here. Really contrasts well with the foliage of the ferns and some of these other perennials. This fern right here is the Japanese painted fern, and I think it is probably one of the best ferns for Oklahoma. It seems to be more resistant to some of the hotter temperatures and the winds we have. And unlike a lot of the other ferns, this one will actually produce new leaves throughout the year. A lot of our ferns just kind of grow just an initial, burst of foliage in the spring, but the Japanese painted fern continues to grow all year. So that's an added benefit to that plant.
And we talk about hardy ferns. This winter for us was probably a pretty good test on these, and these seem like they have come through pretty well.
Exactly.
It really looks neat, and there's a few more plants around here we're going to go look at. Steve, over in this little corner of the shade garden is Butterbur. Tell us about it.
Well, this is a plant that is one of those that's going to be a little bit nomadic. It's going to want to spread in a shaded, moist spot, and it'll kind of fill in and become sort of a ground cover here. As you can see, it's just now starting to grow this spring, and these leaves will get larger. They'll be up to about 1 foot across. But again, like shade, and it likes kind of a moist area.
We have got some different textures and colors in the little grass here.
Exactly. This is a variegated bulbous oat grass, and it's another one of those plants that likes the cool part of the year. Really lights up the shade because it's got quite a bit of variegation, so you see quite a bit of white in the foliage of this plant.
And we don't only have to stay in a garden such as this with herbaceous perennials so much as we can also have some small trees. The little Japanese maple here, I know in the summertime it really seems to thrive well under the canopy of this large tree and in this area.
Yeah, here in Stillwater, it definitely is going to have some shade, and a little bit of protection from the southwest winds also helps. So like maybe the east side or the north side of your home would be a good place to plant one of these Japanese maples, especially in the western part of the state.
Right. And then right behind you, the variegated Japanese boxwood. In the summertime, I know when this is in full foliage and a striking color difference here between these two.
Yeah, and this again has a lot of variegation, so these plants with a lot of these light colors really help to brighten up those shady spots in the garden.
Well, Steve, the Perennial Shade Garden really looks great, and I know throughout the summertime we're going to have more things coming on. And if you did have like a bare spot in the garden, you wouldn't have to necessarily limit it just to perennials. This would be a good place for some shade-loving annuals,
Absolutely.
some impatiens, and some other things to get some different colors in here. But I know plant sources many times on some of these plants are a little bit difficult for many of the average gardeners to locate and to find. And a lot of these plants aren't available at some of the local garden centers, mainly because of not enough demand for them to handle
Sure.
some of these, but some of them may be more specialty plants. What suggestions would you have for someone to search out these plants?
Look at your different catalogs. If you can't find the plant in your local nursery, maybe take the name of the plant to your nurseryman and see if they could possibly get the plant in. And another possibility would be to search the internet. Just type in the botanical name of the plant in one of the search engines, and could also get some sources that way.
Well, I know there's a lot of ways, and these plants are definitely worth looking for and worth
Absolutely.
having. And the good thing about the perennial gardens are that once you get them in there with the right kind of care, and sometimes just minimal care for them, but doing the right thing at the right time, you're going to have nice plants you can enjoy for forever, as opposed to the annuals that you replace. And so it really looks nice, and we're looking forward to seeing how it develops the rest of the summer.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
Sure.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.